Hey everyone, welcome back to Fat and Ass Nerd Run-Throughs, and this time I am doing a very different kind of top 10. Obviously, you know the title, so this is top 10 reasons why I love Talisman. Now this has actually been requested a few times, and for good reason, because throughout the history of this channel I've actually basically raved about how Talisman is my favorite game of all time. Well, if you've actually seen my top 100, that is no longer the case. It is actually now my second favorite game, but because it was my favorite game for so long, and this is a game I don't really hear a lot of people actually still talk about, but I do, only whenever people, you know, bring it up, then do others kind of come out of the woodwork and they're like, oh yeah, I also like it. But other than that, like, hey, let's turn my head. There we go, now you can see my face. There we go. Then do people agree it's like a guilty pleasure for some. And I don't know why, because I think it's a fantastic game, and that's never been a secret. But if you are on the fence of why, on Talisman, and are like, well, why do some people hate it, like really hate it, why do other people like it? Well, here are 10 reasons that it's been, you know, my number one for so long. So obviously we're going to start this with an honorable mention, and the number 11 is just simplistic rules. Now, obviously Talisman is a game that has a bunch of expansions, like there's a bunch of them. So the reason why it's an honorable mention is because as you add all of those, it kind of becomes a little bit more confusing than it should be. So I'm really kind of talking about just the base game here. In Talisman, really all you do is you roll a die to move. Once you go to that spot, if there's a card there, you do what it says on the card. If there's not, then you draw a card and you do what it says on the card, and that's it. Like, that's pretty much the crux of your turn. Now, obviously, that's not all there is to it. But essentially, you just have to go build up and level up to where you feel comfortable that you can go to the middle tier. And then once you get to the middle tier and you level up some more, you feel like you can brave the inner tier. And then once you get there, then if you're playing just the base game, then you just do the, you know, the crown spell, which, you know, slowly kills everyone else off. Unless they're on your spot, then you fight each other for dominance over the crown to, you know, become the king or whatever, to have the crown power. And control the land. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. And it's nice. It was one of the first games that I had that I was like, oh, I understand this game. Okay, that's it. And I've never really... It's like one of the first and only games I really have that I don't have to constantly check the rules. I'm like, okay. Like the setup, I've set it up so many times I don't have to check the setup. So, it deserves to be mentioned, but at the same time, like, honorable mention because of all the expansions, makes it a little bit more confusing. So, that's my number 11. My number 10 is bringing it back to, this was my first gamer game. Like, and so what I mean by that is that obviously I played Monopoly before I played Talisman. I played Life, I played Clue, I played another game. And it was like going and you had to fight Dracula, and it had like a red and blue light. In the middle it was like a tower, and if you pressed it and it was blue, it was daytime, and it would show on the tiles something different. And if it was, no, blue was nighttime, red was daytime. And if each time you'd have to flip it and it would change what the I don't remember what that game was. But I played that before Talisman. So this is kind of what kickstarted my hobby. The story behind that is I had some extra cash, and I was like, oh, I know this game shop. I had played Munchkin, I guess, before Talisman. And I was like, well, okay, let's just go to that shop and see what they have. And Talisman was there, and I was like, all right, I'll check this out. So it just pretty much fueled this hobby, this of who I am as a person. And that always will hold a special place in my heart because it kind of has changed my life in such a way. And it was just something that was different than everything else. Like, I didn't really have any, like, video games that I wanted to play at that time, so then there was these board games that I was like, okay, and I was with my friends, so we went and bought, and we got something that was interesting to us. We played that, we both really liked it, and we played it a lot since then, so it just kind of spiraled out of control. And that's why it's my number 10, because it's for nostalgic reasons. Yeah! My number 9 is that it is competitive and cutthroat. Because, unlike Runebound 3rd Edition, for example, where you're competing heroes, but also you're kind of working together to defeat the big bad, you know, dragon or whatever, but only one of you can beat it, but you can't really fight each other either. Just anyway, Talisman is a game where if someone's doing really well, you have a chance to actually go and fight them, and if you win, then you can take items from them, or you can make them lose a life, or take gold, which also allows you to, if they're really weak, due to circumstances that happen to them, then you can actually go and be the final blow, kill them, and take all their stuff for yourself. So it can be pretty mean, especially because they don't stay as that character if they die. They have to get a whole new character and play as them. So you're basically making them start from scratch. Now, they could hate their character that they get, and that's that. And you know, you're probably helping them because they could just get a way better character. But you still get all their items because they could draw these cards. That's like, oh look, this is perfect. This is an awesome item, or this is a great follower. You can just take all of that for yourself. So I really like that, especially in this because it doesn't happen a lot. But not only that, is that there are, you know, later on expansions that allow you to be mean indirectly, but also kind of directly, to where you can move a werewolf or the Grim Reaper around to actually kill, to hunt these people down and have bad things happen to them, and sometimes good things if they roll well. So it can be very mean. It's very competitive. Obviously, there's no cooperation at all. You're all trying to get to the middle to succeed at whatever quest there is in the middle. So that's why it's my number 9. My number 8 is the fact that this is fun for all of my friends. Now, I mean, obviously I have games that all of my friends like. I've never had Talisman hit the table and people didn't like it. Like, I remember bringing it to the table. This was a game I always brought out, and we would just sit there for hours and just play and have a great time of what was happening to us. I'd bring it to, you know, game nights, and we would just sit around drinking, just regular game nights. Like, everyone wanted to play Talisman. I remember playing on the floor, like, to play this game, because I didn't have a table at the time big enough to do this, and then obviously now I do, because I built one. So it's just a huge hit with my gaming group, and just the fact that it's just whimsical almost at the same time. Like, if you go into the game, which I prep them, I'm like, hey, by the way, guys, this is pretty much all random, so you kind of, you know, live with what you get. So whenever they go in thinking that, like, you can watch my run-through for it, like, and even the discussion, everyone loves it. Like, no one was like, this game fucking sucks, I hate it. So, I mean, that's why it's higher up, because it's a game I can always be like, want to play Talisman? And people will say yes. So, my number 7 is that Talisman is a game that is actually completely random. Now, you may hear some certain run-throughs that, or discussions where I view that as a negative, but I think that boils down to mindset. And whenever it comes to Talisman, the randomness, yes, you can completely get hosed on die rolls. Like, there are cards where you can be visited by, like, I don't know, like some evil witch or something, and then you can roll a die to see what happens on her chart, and you roll a 1, you're killed. And that's that. Now, you can mitigate that by spending fate to re-roll again to not die, but most of the time it's just completely random. Like, you the items you get, the events that happen, all of that is just by a card draw. And you might be like, well, Seth, you've complained about that in other games. Yeah, but with Talisman it's different, maybe because I already know that going into it, and at the time I played Talisman 4 years ago, I didn't really have anything to expect, so I was just like, okay, this is just what this game is. And now it doesn't bother me. And it's not really a strategy game, so whenever I'm normally complaining about randomness, it's the fact that you can have a perfect strategy in, like, Memoir 44 or something, and get hosed by, you know, that deck of cards. Be like, oh, okay, I guess I can't ever activate this side, ever. And like, oh, I got to activate them, roll, and then you roll shit, and it's like, okay, well, I guess that's that. So there's a different atmosphere and a different mindset whenever I go into Talisman anyway. So I really enjoy it in this game. I love the fact that things just happen and you kind of have to deal with them, or each game the world will look different whenever you're playing a card, and there's like a bazaar over here. I think it's called a bazaar, like a Arabian market. Is that right? I can't remember. And then a fountain of life over here, and then in the city there's all these shortcuts and thieves and assassins that you can hire, and over in the highlands there's a bunch of gems and creatures you can go talk to, and then, oh look, Armageddon's happening now, so we all have to deal with that. I don't know. It's fun just to be like, what's going to happen next? And then you're excited whenever you draw because you don't know what it's going to be. It's like, I don't know. I don't know why it just works for me. Like, all the items, everything that you can get that makes your character feel unique because you have all these abilities and stuff like that. It's so much fun. So, which kind of ties into my number 6, which is, this is an loosely an open and evolving world. And what I mean by that is that each time you play, yeah, you're going to have the basic board, of plains and fields and stuff like that. But within like 5 minutes, you're already going to have a card that's placed on this spot that now it's no longer a plains, it's a dragon castle. That's what's there in that spot. And the dragons are, fighting there, and they're doing shit that you can go there and fight dragons, and well, obviously if you're using a certain expansion, and go there and you can fight dragons and get items and shit from that dragon castle. Then over there, with also a certain expansion, the world can be completely destroyed. In one game, we actually had the city spot was completely destroyed and turned to rubble. So thematically, we were like, okay, well, you can't get into the city now, because to get to the city, you have to be able to walk from that city's corner spot into the city board. So since that's been destroyed, the city's been destroyed. Now, obviously the card didn't say that, but that's the assumption you would make, is like, that city's no longer there. So even that's evolving. Then over there's a swamp that just has like a hag that will cast spells for you if you go there. So each game you play, especially with different versions of expansions that you can play with all just to make this huge fantasy world, or you can pick and choose to get a different flavor of theme, you will get a different board. With each expansion you play with the Highlands, Woodlands, Dungeon, or City, and Dragon, then the board spots, you will get a different feel for that too, because it's like, oh, okay, well over here, yeah, that's where the Woodlands are, or yeah, the Highlands. We'll go into those to deal with different things from those decks. So, whenever you're playing, just different opportunities arise that can aid you in winning or hurt you. And I don't know, it's just fun. Even while I'm talking right now about this, I want to just pull out Talisman and play. Like, it's like I can play that game for hours. So that's my number 6. Oh, also leading into my number 5, what I just said is this has massive replayability. Like I said, I can play this for hours. Never once have I played this game and the outcome was the same. Yeah, like ultimately you go to the middle and do whatever the middle says. Okay, yes, how you play the game is always the same, but the replayability comes from these massive quest cards. Like, I'm not kidding, quest cards go up to here. Like, it's a huge stack with all the expansions, of course. And that's just the base, or adventure cards is what they're called, adventure deck. Then, each expansion, the Woodlands has its own deck. The Highlands has its own deck, City has its own deck, Dungeon has its own deck, each dragon has its own deck. So, just with even just the base game, you would be able to play this. Oh, by the way, with the Harbinger, not the Harbinger, oh my god, what was the latest expansion? Cataclysm? I think that's what it was called. With that, it has its own deck and its own deck of cards because the world ended. So whenever you're playing with each expansion, you're not gonna go through that whole unless you make it a goal. Like, no one's trying really to win. You're just trying to go through the cards. I've only gone through one deck, and I've had this game for 4 years now. I've played it. Oh man, I couldn't even tell you how many times I've played this game. I've only gone through one deck all the way through, and that was the city deck, and that was the only time that we only had that as the expansion, and we just wanted to see. We were just so enamored with the city that we just went through the entire deck just to explore the city and have that adventure. So that's a game. Like the replayability, you have a new character that has its own ability that you want to do. Then you're gonna get these completely different items to go to these different spots, and it just. Then it has the alternative endings, and just there's so much replayability that I personally think you're never going to get bored. You can, and I mean, that's kind of where my house rule came, where if there's different factions, you don't get to choose who you play, you get dealt someone. That's my own house rule, because I like that. I like not looking at a game that I've played multiple times and be like, oh, I know who who this person is, or how this faction works. Oh, you're new? Yeah, okay, well that's a shame. Here's your character that you're never going to get to use, and I have this, so I have an advantage. I like being dealt something and figuring out how to make them work and how to win that way. So with Talisman, there's like 70 characters, so yep, just shuffle those up and deal one. You're like, okay, there you go, that's who you are this game. And if you die, you get a new random one, and you just live with that. So whenever you're dealt randomly, that's the replayability as well, on top of the alternative endings, on top of the expansions and all the cards. It's just, I've never had a boring game of Talisman. So that's my number 5. My number 4 is what I've already mentioned, and that is actually the alternative endings. This is such a cool mechanism. Like Relic did the same thing. And I like how, Relic, this was the game, pretty much. Where the beginning was different each time, which Relic is pretty much Talisman in space and the Warhammer 40k. But whenever it comes to Talisman, the base game was get to the middle, and you roll a die. I think on a 4 or 5, everyone, or 3 or 4, everyone loses 1 life except you. On a 5 or 6, everyone loses 2 life, 1 to 2, nothing happens. Yeah, die rolls, one game I can let it slide. But in each expansion, they started adding alternative endings, and what this means is that there are 2 different types. They have revealed, which means that at the very beginning of the game, this is on, it's in the middle, this is your goal. Some of it is like, go and kill a bunch of monsters, have wanted posters, first one to get to the middle with, it's like, I think it's the Thieves Guild. It may not be the Thieves Guild, the Assassins Guild, maybe? It's like, first one to get to the middle with 6 wanted posters is the winner. So everyone has a clearly defined goal from the very beginning. Okay, we're going to go and try and find monsters and hunt them. Which is already thematic in and of itself, because now everyone is a monster hunter, and you're not going to there's no monster deck that you just draw. You have to find them and kill them, and then sometimes some of them are tough. And it's like, oh, dragon, shit, I'm level 1, and, okay, it killed me. Or it dealt damage, and fuck, I'm not going to kill this thing yet. Then you level up, and you come back, and you're like, oh, you're my bitch now, and you backhand the dragon, and then you, like, cut its head off, and you throw it on the assassin table, and you're like, fuck you guys. 15 years it took me to kill that thing. Anyway, so with the alternative endings, there's revealed, where everyone knows what the goal is, and that makes it kind of a little bit more competitive, because it's like, you're each trying to outdo one another. Then I've actually only done that once or twice, because, and I really don't know why I don't do it more, because I do like that. I like how there's a goal. Oh, this is what we need to do to win. Okay, everyone knows to do that. But it's almost like against what Talisman is, that randomness, that uncertainty, to where the second part of the alternative endings comes in, which is the hidden ones. And there's a bunch of different types, a bunch of revealed and a bunch of hidden. And normally we always play hidden, because we really don't like just the go to the middle. So these hidden ones, you just shuffle them up and it goes face down in the middle. And the first person to go to the middle will reveal it, and that's what happens. So no one really knows what to do or how to prepare for it. You're just dealt with it once you get there, and it's like it's like a horrible black void, which means your character is sucked in and you die. That's it. Like you just die, and then now you get a new hidden alternative ending, and everyone else continues playing. Now, obviously, that has actually happened to me, and And most of the time we're just like, ha, yeah, that fucking sucks. And we'll kill the character, but the person playing we'll give them a new character, and or like myself, will give me a new character, and we'll keep playing. Because like in a game as long as Talisman, you don't really want to die and be like, oh, okay, well that was a fun 3 hours. But that's Talisman. You can be there and have all this stuff, and you can just die, like just like that. And now that character's gone. Oh, yep, that sucks, man. Here's your new character. Really bothers a lot of people, and I understand why, but I don't know. It works for me in that game. Anyway, so the hidden ones just show complete. And by the way, these add replayability because you can have a completely different revealed one that makes the goal and game different. Then you can have a completely different hidden one, which once you get there, you're like, oh shit, I didn't know this, and you have to deal with that now. It's just fantastic. So that's why it's my number 4. My number 3 is the character selection. So I really wish I'd actually pulled the game out to show you guys, but there are, I want to say, I know there are over 60 characters, and no game I've played has this much variety of characters in a game. I mean Arkham, but that actually has lore behind it, actual books and stuff that it's kind of justified. But I still don't think there's that many. Now you might be saying, okay, well they're just generic fantasies. They really don't have a backstory or anything. That's true. Whereas Arkham, yeah, they have their own abilities, a backstory, but once again they come from books. Whereas there are other games where there's not as many characters, but they all have a lore and intricate things that tie into their character, and that is also true. I'm not saying the way the characters are done are amazing, but I'm just saying the vast amount of characters that there are that makes each of them completely feel unique and it makes sense to those characters is just fantastic. Like they have Ents, well they're not really called Ents, but like a walking tree, they have pixies, they have gladiators, they have a bard, in the base game there was like a thief, a ghoul, a bard, a princess, a wizard, a sorcerer, like they're just your generic fantasy ones, like basically look at the D&D class and be like, oh, okay, these characters. But as the expansions came out, it was like, oh, there are all these, you have a swashbuckler, you have a bartender, so, and all of these just make sense and have these unique abilities, a mutant, to where you have these really cool abilities that can benefit you, that will benefit you the entire time throughout the game. And you will, like, the bard can actually sing songs and tame animals through that. The bartender, she can actually make drinks and she'll roll on her chart and it'll actually like force people to give her gold because she's making drinks for them, or give her abilities. You have the mutant, which actually I think starts the game completely different and gets a bunch of different bonuses and has this, like, we've had games where the mutant, I think it was the mutant, was really overpowered, and we had cards that were like spells that, oh man, oh fuck, I forgot about the spells! God damn, I forgot about the spells. There's so many spells in this game that are all completely different and unique. Like, there was one where our friend started with, I want to say the mutant, and the mutant was really good. And so, beginning of the game, my friend who was playing a wizard, some person who started out with spells, it was like a teleport spell where they got to pick someone and move them anywhere on the board. And they moved them into the dungeon, and the dungeon's really hard to survive, especially at low levels. So he moved him in the middle of the dungeon to where, yeah, you could leave, like right in the middle, and it's like the same amount of space. You can leave, or you can try and make it through. And the mutant died on the way out because it's like, yeah, fuck you, man. Like, you don't get to start with that badass character. Try and make it out of the dungeon. Maybe you earn it. Anyway, I have so many memories and so many stories of this game. But whenever you're looking at all these games that I have back here, none of them have as many characters that Talisman has, and never makes you feel like, oh yeah, sweet, I'm this character. Like, oh man, there's this, hold on, 69, there are 69 characters which is a weird number as to why they stopped it there. And so like there's like a scavenger. You begin the game, place the top 5 cards of the remnant deck, and you may carry any number of objects, stuff like that. A sage, a tinkerer, a dragon priestess, a knight, a magus, an elementalist that uses their fate, which allows them to do different. A dread knight, a troll, a warlock, a monk, the possessed, some guy with a fucking possessed demon arm. Tavern Maid is who. An ascendant divine, a wizard, a fire wizard, a cat burglar, a prophetess. So like a minotaur. So there's so many different types of characters that like. Let's see. So if I just took one at random, the Fire Wizard, at the start of your turn you gain 1 spell. You may hurl a Pyroblast whenever you're about to engage a battle with a character or creature. You roll 1 die and add your craft. If it's higher, then the character's strength, they must lose 1 life. And you are not affected by Dragon Breath attacks, because that's a thing in the Dragon expansion. The Black Knight, you begin the game with a spiked shield. When you land on the space with another character, or another character lands on your space, you may threaten that character. If you do, he must either pay you 1 gold or lose 1 life. The Black Knight is actually a spot on the board, and like he actually left his post to venture out into the world. The Troll starts the game with more life than everyone, has shit craft but has high strength. Whenever you roll a 6 for your move, you may regenerate instead of moving. If you choose to regenerate, you heal 1 life and your turn immediately ends. So, they're not like. Some of them are. Others have pretty simplistic abilities. As more and more expansions came out, they kind of got a little bit more detailed. But so like the base game characters kind of have simpler abilities, but there's just such a vast variety of it, and it's amazing. So that's why it is my number 3. My number 2 is a little bit difficult. Like, it's number 2 mainly because of just preference. Obviously, it's my top 10, but it's not going to sound like I just raved about the character selection. I raved about all of these. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that I love it for its fantasy theme. Like, this is pure fantasy. Like, everything that embodies fantasy is in Talisman. Yeah, there's other fantasy games out there. Like, there's Runebound. There is, there is other games that are in the fantasy world. Legends of Andor, Ethnos, Near and Far, I guess that wouldn't be really fantasy. Like Tyrants of the Underdark, stuff like that. Even Tales of Arabian Nights, kind of, because I guess Talisman also has an Arabic expansion. All of those do have fantasy, and they were really good games, and I like them. Obviously, they're in my collection. But at the end of the day, like, I think Talisman holds that, higher than most games, where that fantasy, every single element of fantasy you can think of, I'm pretty sure is in Talisman. Like, even just your generic fantasy, everything from like D&D that is like the best fantasy RPG is in Talisman, and it's done in a very I wouldn't say unique way, but in a almost pure way. Like, nothing feels out of place, because it's fantasy. It's supposed to be fantastical, where it's like, oh my god, I didn't know that could happen. But like, there's dragons, there's magic, there's portals, there's changing lands, there's creatures, there's abilities. There's, all this that is magic and fantasy is in Talisman. And personally, I will always love fantasy over sci-fi. Even though I do like technology and stuff like that, and sci-fi is cool, I don't know, there's just something about fantasy that really just does it for me. Like, if magic is really cool. I even really like magic shows in real life, because it just brings in that sense of wonder. I don't know, I feel like sci-fi is a possibility, and that's cool, but fantasy is a sense of wonder and amazement and, mystical that is like, yeah, that's never going to happen. We're not going to ever be able to cast spells and stuff like that, and I really wish we could, because that'd be so cool if that was a thing. And so, it's my number 2 because of that I just really enjoy that theme so much more, and Talisman just does it so well. So that's why it's my number 2. And finally, my number 1 is something that probably wouldn't surprise you, as I've pretty much mentioned it in all of these other things. It's just there is tons of variety, and what I mean by tons of variety is not just in the 69 characters. I guess technically the Toad is a character, so which you can be turned into a Toad, by the way, which sucks. It's awful. So I guess that's 70. But it's not just the 69 characters, it's not the alternative endings, it's all of the expansions. Like, I've done the top 10 the top 10 Talisman expansions, so go check that out. But there are so many. Obviously, I was able to do 10 of them, and there were more that I had to block out. Like, there's the 4 corner boards, so that's already 4 expansions, and you have the middle one, which is the dragon, so you have 5. Then, so those are the 5 big box expansions. 6, actually, technically, because I have the Cataclysm expansion, which changes the main board, which was pretty much needed. Like, I'll never play with them. I still have it, I think. I think it's in the box. But I don't think I'll ever go back to it. So that's 6 expansions already. Then you have the smaller ones. You have Frostmarch, Sacred Pool, Reaper, Werewolf, Firelands, oh man, Firelands. I think that maybe it. Nope, Harbinger. Harbinger is another one. So yeah, I might be missing some in there, but that's a bunch of expansions, a bunch that make the adventure deck this fucking big. And like, most of them, I don't even pull all those out anymore. I just like kind of just grab a little pile just randomly and put them in. But the variety in that is that you can mix and match on which expansions you want. If Halloween's coming up, grab the... Yep, I think it's the werewolf. Grab the werewolf expansion. Blood Moon, that's what it's called. Grab the Blood Moon expansion, and that has like a Halloween kind of theme to it. If you want to do kind of like a darker theme, you can do Werewolf and Grim Reaper, which add both of the werewolf, which has its own chart, and you can be turned into a werewolf, which means other cards can affect you. It brings a night-day cycle, which means daytime there's creatures are weaker, but so is a werewolf character, and nighttime creatures are stronger, but so is a werewolf character, but there are cards that affect you if you're a werewolf. I will say, if you bunch all this together, yes, you're going to get a huge epic fantasy, feel, but if you're like a werewolf by happenstance, you're not going to be really affected unless happenstance cards can affect you. Like, for example, if you're a werewolf and you draw, I think it's like a village mob, if you're they call it a lycanthrope, if you are one, you're just killed like that. There's nothing you can do about it because the village kills you because you're a werewolf. If you have this many cards, that the chances of that happening are slim. But break all those cards out, just have the base game and the Blood Moon expansion in there, and then now that's a very real possibility. Then you have the dungeons, the Highlands. The dungeon is basically where you can get these epic, awesome treasures if you happen to make it all the way through. The Woodlands is a very mystical, weird place. It's actually an awesome expansion to where fate is now a new thing, to where they were two-sided, light and dark, to where now you have more mitigation on die rolls. Fate, if you were more light-fated, you were affected differently. If you were dark-fated, you were affected differently. Highlands is where you're basically going to go get a bunch of money, like a bunch of gems and shit, to where you can go and then sell. And the city is where you can boost up your character and level up, get wanted posters. Dragons, 3 dragons are fighting for control, which affect every area of the board. And then just all those other smaller ones, which just add just so many adventure cards and so many spells that, oh my god, I think it is the game with the most expansions. Arkham may have a beat, but same company that did it. Well, technically, Talisman was Games Workshop and Fantasy Flight, which no more Talisman expansions are coming out because Games Workshop, shitty, they broke up. I did a video on that one as well. But Arkham may have more or just as many. So yeah, there is an absolute ton of variety in Talisman, and those are the top 10 reasons, 11 technically, of why I love Talisman so much. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope this gives you insight on why Talisman is such a great game. Now, obviously, there are problems with it that as I play more and more games, there are things about Talisman I don't like. And if you like this, why I love Talisman, or I can do other games like if you I can go through my top 10 and most likely do a top 10 reasons why I love these games. So that may be something I'll do. If you enjoyed this, let me know in the comments below. But other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you want to support us, you can go ahead and click that link to go to my Patreon account. If you have any suggestions, you can go ahead and click the link in the show notes below to go to my Board Game Geek list. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.